as its India-branded business has also bounced back to double-digit growth. But in North America is where the real action was. Sales up 57%, accounting for a third of Lupin's global sales now. The drug maker's U.S. subsidiary has also gotten FDA approval for a new drug application for scalp oil used to treat the skin condition eczema. Ramesh Swaminathan is the global CFO and executive director at Lupin and joins me now live. Thank you for being with us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So it's been a big turnaround from last year's loss, and not just returning to profit, but even beating estimates quite handily. What's behind it?
There has been secular growth across all our markets. We look at America, for example. In the fourth quarter, we actually bettered that, in fact, with the newer launch out there called Darunavir. If you look at other markets, India continues to do pretty well for us. Even after taking into account the negative impact of NLEM, we were able to post close to about 13% growth out here. Similarly, there was growth in other markets, EU, Australia, and parts of the other parts of the world as well. API grew handsomely, thanks to, in fact, a rebound in terms of cephalosporin products across the globe. So potentially because of all of that, we did fairly well. The other part is we also had, in fact, a milestone in terms of our NC income from a molecule that we had outlicensed some time ago that's included in the results. All of this meant that the top line as well as the bottom line did fairly well.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, you've done very well, particularly in North America. I mean, a 50% plus improvement in your earnings there. But what's driving it? I mean, something must have changed. You don't get that kind of growth suddenly in an ordinary scenario.
Yeah, you're actually not comparing apples with apples, essentially, because the first quarter of the previous year was actually an aberration of kinds. We actually had to take, the overall top line at that point of time was kind of stymied by certain, provisions that we had to take in terms of stock adjustments and the like. And because of that, it looks as though there has been a tremendous blip in terms of the first quarter results in America. But if we were to compare it to the previous quarter, that's the quarter 4 of last year, it's the same, the same vicinity.
Okay, well, the growth in India was considerably less than that in your home market. How much of that was down to the fact that the government has been acting to control prices?
There has been a negative impact because of the fact that, the government has been working on enhancing the NLEM list itself, and of course there's been some kind of price erosion because of that. But in a general sense, the market grew handsomely, and we benefited by that as well. If you look at, in fact, the volume growth, you could actually attribute about 5.5% growth out there. And of course, on top of that, we also had, in fact, a price increase which the government allows us to take, essentially in the case of NLEM products, so to speak, which we did. And as a result of that, we were able to post double-digit growth. In a general sense, we have also been adding to the manpower, the feet on the ground in terms of sales force, and of course working on productivity measures. Both of these actually paid off handsomely, and for that reason, we actually saw pretty good growth, when it comes to the India business.
You said that the numbers were not really apples for apples because last year you saw some unusual activity. When is that base effect going to wash through, and what are you forecasting for the next quarter?
No, I didn't say that. So obviously you shouldn't actually take away the gloss from what we actually achieved this particular quarter. Comparing it, in fact, the aberration of the first quarter in America is a little misleading in that sense, I said. But overall, the position of America is that we are very, very strong, given the kind of pipeline that you're going to unleash out there. Next quarter, for example, you're working on, in fact, bringing in a product called Spiriva, which is part of our inhalations portfolio. And there are a few other products that are kind of lined up for America. So you would actually expect a period of good growth for America. But we could equally apply this to, in fact, other markets that we are operating in. For example, in the case of EU, we have, in fact, just launched Foster out there. We also have Spiriva launches in Australia and Canada and so on. So overall, the pipeline is kind of clicking in, something that we have kind of anticipated for some time, and that's the reason why we are finding this momentum we believe that this momentum can be sustained.
Okay, your dividend policy is quite a modest one when measured against cash flow and your earnings. Are you planning any changes in dividend?
It is actually a factor of, in fact, the kind of profits that we we have seen, and potentially the alternate use for monies itself. We do believe that we can actually plow our monies back into the business itself and return a handsome and provide a handsome return to our shareholders. And given that we have had a conservative payout policy in the past, and of course the levels of profits were actually lower in the last couple of years, 2 to 3 years. And for that reason, we were in fact a little conservative. But going forward, we kind of retain the same level of conservatism, given the fact that we believe that the business could perform pretty well.
All right, there we will leave it. Thank you very much indeed for being with us this morning.
Thank you. It has always been a pleasure.
Ramesh Swaminathan of Lupin. Now in the Indian stock market as a